Welcome to Getting Heated, the place to debate and discuss all things surf-related. On today's show, we're diving into the hottest heats of the Rip Curl Newcastle Cup and throwing it back to the best 10-point rides ever to go down in Australia. Plus, we're revisiting the drama behind the most controversial heats in competition history. Finally, addressing what needs to change in the WSL rulebook. Start the clock. It's on.
Welcome to Getting Heated. I'm Coco Ho, and today we have a spicy show. Time to bring in these legends with 3 world title trophies in the background, Mick Fanning, and former CT Charger turned semi-pro snowboarder Ross Williams. Ross, did you score some powder turns last week?
The snow was epic. We had a lot of fun. My girls are still smiling.
Glad you guys got snow. I just had rain.
Well, it's raining here in Hawaii now too, Mick, so we're with you. I almost can't believe that next week the CT finally returns. The heat draws are set, so let's dive in for Heat 1. The Rip Curl Newcastle Cup starts on April 1st. For those of us not competing, the excitement of seeing the draw is like opening a present on Christmas. So for Heat 1, I want to know what stands out as the hottest heat of the draw for you guys. Ross, which one has your interest most?
Yeah, Coco, this is a fun one for me because I feel like there was sort of obvious winners for each heat. So I had to go further down the draw. So for Heat 11, that's what I loved about it. And that's Ryan Callanan, who's the local favorite. He's young, he's ripping. He hasn't gotten anywhere near to where his talent can take him in the ratings. I would say very similar things about Seth Moniz, who's also in his heat, a young Hawaiian who's he's just itching to break through. And then you have Adriano de Souza, who's in his heat as well. Mick, what I love about Adriano is this is his last year on tour, so I feel like it's going to give him a major jolt of caffeine for every single heat. We both know how good he is at closing heats out. He doesn't make mistakes. He's going to really keep Seth and Ryan on their toes, so that's a tough one. But I will say, Mick, if I had to choose a winner, I'll choose the local boy, Ryan. He's really exciting to watch. I feel like he, whether the waves are small or big, he's going to have that X factor. And as well as I do, Mick, the lineup at Newcastle is really tough. So that might give him that edge.
You watched his latest clip, didn't you, on Stab? Ryan's clip was incredible. This is one that the conditions can play a big part in it. But in saying that, they can all surf in every type of conditions. But if I have to pick someone, I'm going to go with my lucky number 7 and Seth. I think Seth's a kid, as you said before, a kid that has that X factor. He's extremely clutch. He's one of the guys who, when he needs a big score, he can throw it out there. We've seen it in a few different events. We saw it at D-Bar last time they competed. And also, even when he came up against Gabe Medina at Pipe, huge airs, against the world champion. So Seth's a guy that I think can pull it out when it really needs to.
Super good heat choices on both ends. Ross, I really respect your choice. I feel like all the locals are going to have Ryan Callanan's back. So I'm going to keep my local support with Seth Moniz. Mick, hottest heat in your eyes?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the women's draw on this one. This is heat number 2. It's Lakey Peterson, Tyler Wright, and Keely Andrew. The reason why I chose this is because you don't get 2 top 5s run into each other in first round. I did a bit of work with Lakey last year. She's got new turns. She's got new energy. She's got new confidence. So she's going to be incredible. Then you've got Tyler Wright, who, she came back from illness and she looks so confident in herself. She's a new Tyler Wright. And then Keely Andrews, she's not a sleeper in this heat. I think she's extremely solid. And when the conditions get tricky, she always comes and performs. She's had big results in tricky places like Brazil. And I feel like Newcastle is one of those places where the conditions can serve up anything. So this is a real tough one. I'm just going to go with the local in Tyler Wright, just because she's got the ratings lead. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of them win.
Yeah, tough. You know, it's weird, Mick, because I'm a little bit confused on how Lakey and Tyler are in the same heat this early in the draw. I think Lakey's got that X factor. I'm going to stick to that sort of theme as far as trying to pick a winner in these heats, Mick. As you mentioned, you know, you worked with her. She's got a lot of drive to perform, and I love that. I would think Tyler is definitely maybe the smarter, more clutch competitor, but Lakey's got that X factor. So if she catches a lot of confidence, she's the type of surfer that could just go on a major roll and win a bunch of events. So I like that she's looking for that edge. I feel like in this heat and this year, she has a little more to prove.
Also too, with Lakey, she just had 2 weeks in quarantine, and her husband's a physio. So it's like she has 0 injuries right now. She's 100% perfect in the body situation where she's going to be feeling amazing. It's going to be an exciting one. It's going to be, I think it's going to be the heat of the round. Either way it falls, that's going to be the heat of the round.
Who's Coco got in this heat?
Quarantine or not, I do think Lakey has the advantage for the point Mick mentioned. But I love a good underdog story, and I respect Keely a lot, love her surfing, so I hope she shows up. When we return, we're reliving the greatest 10-point rides to ever go down in Australia. And what's the most controversial heat in surfing's history? We'll tell you as soon as we're back. Welcome back to Getting Heated. Guys, is it safe to say that all three of us really appreciate a solid, beautiful, undeniable 10-point ride?
100%. It's like watching a solar eclipse or something.
Personally, I'm into 4.83s because I perfected those, Coco, on tour.
Oh, well, let's talk 10s in Heat 2. There have been 15 10-point rides in the Australian leg of the CT in the modern era. I love a good 10, but they're not all equal. So here's the Heat 2 question. What's the best 10-point ride to ever go down in Australia? Mick, you got home court advantage here.
This 10-point ride is exactly what you think of when you go to this certain spot. The one I'm talking about is Seabass's 10 at North Point. You go to North Point and your dream, you're thinking that you're going to get barreled from start to finish the whole way, just going over foam balls, punching through chandeliers. So that one for me is, you know, my favorite 10 of the modern era in Australia. The other reason why it's so amazing, if you listen to the commentary, I think Pete Mel actually orgasmed in the microphone.
Oh, he's still there! He's still there! Going. Oh my God! Oh my gosh!
It was so heavy. He was so freaked out. And then Seabass comes flying out of the tube, and then he runs into Strider, who's having an absolute ball as well. And then, you know, we all know how fun Seabass is. He was throwing, you know, that many shuckers. It was just, everything around that 10 was just pure joy and exactly what you want when you get a 10-point ride. Everyone just frothing out.
Oh my God. That was probably accurate. I think Pete Mel actually lost it. He kind of threw me off right there. I can't get Condor out of my head now. That is awesome. Okay. I'm not going to deny that was one of the funnest 10s that we've ever seen in the world, let alone Australia. So I love that pick, Mick. So my 10 is a bit of departure from that sort of environment, and it's more about competition. And I just love how clutch it was. And it's one of the best performances I've ever witnessed in Australia, period, from start to finish. And that was in 2015, Felipe Toledo just went crazy on the Gold Coast. He racked up 6 high 9s in this event through every round. And in the final, he had Julian Wilson. And then under priority, Julian let this wave go. And it was just the perfect Gold Coast, Snapper Rocks grower. And Felipe unleashed, ended with a big old finner. And it was a perfect 10, undeniable. It was just such a crazy wave. And I think Felipe was 18 years old, so he was wiry, he was light, he was just all over the joint. But it was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. And a 10 was, it was an 11.
Yeah, I remember that wave. I lost the carton in a bet. I was betting on Julian to win that one. So, yeah, I remember it. Yeah, look, I guess 10s are one of those things where they're not an everyday occurrence. Maybe if you're Felipe or something. But, I think you want to have that moment where it's just pure elation, like everyone gets involved in your 10. And I know the people on the beach, it was at Snapper just went absolutely loony for that wave. But I just love the commentary from Pete Mel, and that's why Seabass's one got the pick from me.
Personally, Mick, you forever ruined that wave for me with your analogy of what Pete Mel was doing in the booth. So that wave, I can't watch it ever again.
Were you in the booth with him?
You wish.
Those were both incredible rides, maybe even some better memories, but let's take it from the 10-point rides to some questionably underscored rides for Heat 3. The events are starting back up, and we're going to see some close heats in tricky conditions, but controversial scoring is nothing new. So for Heat 3, what would you guys say is the most controversial heat that went the wrong way? Ross, which one still has you fired up?
This is a really, really fun topic. I think everyone's favorite thing to talk about is whether someone won or lost a heat. It's what makes competitive surfing fun to watch, to be honest. I think it's one of the most iconic heats in our history of competitive surfing. And that's in the semifinal in 2014 Tahiti Pro with Kelly Slater and John Florence. Now, as far as the scores go, I feel like there's a lot of nuance there. It was a 9.9 versus a 10. And that was the very first exchange in the heat. And Kelly had the 10, John had the 9.9. Their waves were the similar size. They were both heavy, gnarly drops. The point of difference for me and where I thought John should have had the edge is he let go of his rail every single barrel he got. He was in the barrel. Whenever he got in the barrel, he was performing. So he wasn't just sort of drawing a line and hanging to life. He was letting go, and he was weaving without grabbing rail over the foam ball, which just no one does. Only the very best in the world do that. And that's what sort of separates John from the rest of the field at places like Pipe and Chopu, is the fact that he's just so comfortable and he's actually performing in a barrel, which doesn't really happen. Kelly, if you remember, Mick, that first exchange where he got the 10, he made a late drop and then he yanked on his rail and kind of accidentally got high in the barrel and then redirected brilliantly, as Kelly always does. He has the best instincts and the best reflexes and sort of navigated his way out of the barrel. It was just, in my opinion, Kelly reacting. Whereas John was in control the whole way. And in my opinion, that's harder to do. And then at the very end of the heat, Mick, with that last wave with John, he let go of his rail. He was super deep. It was definitely the longest barrel of the final. He needed a 9.88 and got a 9.87. They actually virtually tied. And on the count back, Kelly had the 10 and he beat him. So I thought John surfed just a little better in that heat.
Yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from, obviously being the coach. No, I'm joking. Going back to it, the one thing for me, and this is something that people might be able to take into, later down the track, was when people let go of their rails or just, stand tall, they're not as deep as what they actually could be. And I think that's what the judges saw. Like Kelly's, even though it's a mistake, he's made so many 10s from mistakes, and just, his brilliance just brings him through. His high line and then over the fine ball and down, and then just how long he was in that tube from the front angle. I think the side angle it's so different for the judges to look into the tube versus the one on the front angle. And I watched that over and over again, and I just felt like John made his look too easy. He was just so good and just so calculated and, performing so well. He made it look too easy, where Kelly just was like, he was on the verge of the mistake actually put him in a better position to not make the wave, and he made it. So look, it is one of those controversial ones, but I think in the judges' eyes, Looking back at that, I think John just made it look too easy, and that was why Kelly got the nod.
Yeah, I hate that. I can't stand that when that's actually a thing. And that's going back to a few episodes when we were talking about maybe the odd chance that there's an ex-tour surfer on a judging panel, that maybe that's something that they would bring to the panel, that nuance and just catching it. Because in my opinion, what John did, and again, it's not like Kelly was, bogging in that heat. What Kelly did was absolutely amazing. But in my opinion, what John did was more difficult and more under control. And sometimes, as you mentioned, and Kelly's done it many times in his career, he'll pull the wool over the judge's eyes a little bit and recover. I don't think that you should be penalized for it, but you definitely need to take note if someone's recovering as opposed to in control the whole time. And I watched that wave over just like you did, Mick, last night 100 times, all of those waves in that heat. And John was up and over the foam ball. You can't get any deeper than that chokes. I mean, he climbed over the foam ball without grabbing rail. It was just bananas.
Yeah, look, that's why it's controversial, right? I think there's no wrong answer in that situation. It's just, I think looking from the judge's eyes, I think that's maybe what they saw. Maybe when kids are standing in that perfect tube, maybe just grab a rail and try and just park it just a little bit so you come out just a little bit later.
Well, all I have to say is all hail the no grab. When we return, is it time for some changes to the CT rulebook? We might be ripping out some pages when we come back. Welcome back to Getting Heated. Mick and Ross, I recently had to go through all 105 pages of the WSL rulebook. Can you guess the fine for a surfer who uses profanity on the broadcast?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Oh, boy.
Some rules make the sport better, and some rules we'd be better off without. Let's go deep into this one. As with any sport, the rulebook is long and boring, but all surfers need to know it. Some rules are necessary, but there is always room for improvement. So here's the going deep question. If you could change one thing in the WSL rulebook, what would it be? Mick, we'd call it the fanning rule. What would it be?
Oh, flip of the coin. I know a lot of guys are against this because they paddled faster than me, but and I never fought for inside priority, but I would have loved just to see the drama over flipping the coin before two people paddled out. It's like, heads or tails, just to see how people's mind would just start working and changing if they didn't get that priority, or if they did get the priority. I feel like sometimes people just paddle around way too much and we're missing waves. I know there's a rule in there now if you do paddle for a wave, that priority actually goes to the other guide. But I would just love to see the drama around flipping a coin.
I really like that, Mick. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm sure you're aware of this. That's been sort of a topic amongst the surfers for years. I'm backing you on that one. It would just get rid of that first 3 to 5 minutes of everyone hassling and just get right down to the surfing. I would get rid of the 3-man heats and or the seeding round. I understand why we have it, and there's attributes to having a seeding round. It lets the surfers warm up, which I know everyone's a fan of. But here's the big problem for me, and we've talked about this before. Surf contests are really long. They're too long. They're 4 to 6 days. If there's combined men's and women's together, they take forever. And there's a lot of problems with that. Business-wise, it's a problem to sell it because you're asking networks and sponsors to sort of tune in, and we'll tell you when we're going to run. And it's just to have people's attention span last throughout 12 days is really tough. So if you could knock it back down to 30 instead of 32, and same for the women, from 16 down to 14, there's that even number that we're looking for. Mick, I did the math on this last night. You could cut from 70 heats down to 46. That's 12 hours. That's a day and a half of competition. So At these events, all the way down to just 2.5 days. Now we're looking at one swell. And to me, that would be a huge shot in the arm for surfing.
Is that because you're on the beach and you have to watch every single heat, Ross, that you want to cut down some heats? For me, being on the couch, make these things go longer. I love it. I love watching the best surfers surf. It's incredible. The attention span, look, you can put it in and out. You don't have to watch every single heat, but I love it. I sit there and watch every heat these days. When I was on tour, yeah, you could cut it down, but now I'm off tour. I just want to watch the best surfers.
Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to keep it alive. I just think they're personally too long. And to be honest, it makes it a bit boring when you have all these multiple rounds that where there's no consequence. I'm a fan of just getting right in there, striking right away. Seeming in the first round, someone's going to go home. I mean, now we're talking. That's what makes the beauty of like basketball and football so insane, is like right away someone's going to lose. Whereas surfing and tennis, to be honest, it's the same way. They're really long. No one really tunes in until the fourth quarter or the finals. And that's just because no one's going home until then.
Yeah, look, I understand getting straight into it. I personally hate people losing in three-man heats. I think it's something that should not be a thing on the tour. We've brought up this idea of fixing the numbers to go, straight into man on man. The one thing that I can see is when rookies come on tour and they run straight into the top 5 guys straight away. If they don't win that first heat at that first event, they've got them pretty much for the rest of the year. So I think that's a good thing where those three-man heats can break them up a little bit, sort of put them in a different sort of category of the draw with them. But look, I'm not a fan of the three-man heat with a loser. I think it is null and void a little bit. Making the event shorter, as I said, I'm a huge fan. I just want to watch more surfing.
I back the coin toss. That does it for today's episode. Mick, I hope you don't get fined. We'll see you both next week.
I'm sending the bill to you if I do, Coco. You towed me into that.